What the city is talking about. This is Montreal Now on News Talk Radio, CJAD 800.
That is James Mennie. He is over at the Montreal Gazette. So, Jim, before we get into anything else, we were talking yesterday, and you were going on about, the crime we've been talking about, low-level crime, extortion, the firebombing, Molotov cocktails, that kind of stuff. Did you happen to catch any Fadi Daguerre?
Yes, I did.
What did you think? What did you think of what he had to say?
He didn't say that much. I thought he was a very slow kind of. I would have said he was tap dancing, but he wasn't wearing taps. It was very low key, very. We have to wait and see, and we're doing stuff, and we're making arrests and whatever. And I don't really think. I mean, you did raise the issue of staffing levels on the police department, which is a factor, but it's also a matter. I think that you got to look if you have a sense of urgency about this. If you believe that this is not what should become normal, then that's fine. But if you want to say, okay, listen, with the resources I have, I can only do so much, and this is what I'm going to do. I mean, we had another car torch this morning, right? So that's another day at the office, and tomorrow will probably be something else. But this is it. This is the city that we live in, and I for one, don't like the direction that this is taking. The normalcy of this kind of crime, and as I said yesterday, the apparent sense of impunity that these gangs have. That this is going on all the time, and you saw the suspect they picked up for a firebombing of a restaurant in St. Leo last weekend. 15 years old.
15 years old. So, amazing, yeah.
Yeah, you know what I mean. And that's like okay, fine, but tell me nothing's going on, because really, back in the day, it was a big thing. Oh yeah, criminals, master criminals are using kids to carry out their nefarious schemes. I don't think master criminals are doing. I don't think there are any master criminals left. These are a bunch of bloody-minded amateurs, and yeah, they're using kids to do their dirty work, whether it's car theft or low-end fire bombings like this, trying to shake somebody down. But I'm sorry, this is I can't say that this was something that this always came with the territory in Montreal. No, it didn't. It absolutely did not. Organized crime, by all means. The incursion of the motorcycle gangs, criminal biker gangs, by all means. But this kind of homegrown. That you don't really know who's calling the shots in any particular neighborhood anymore when it comes to crime. There's something wrong with the picture, and I'm very, very sorry. It doesn't seem that this police department and this administration is prepared to deal with it.
By the way, I just will mention, I want to move on. First of all, the number you brought up, and he basically confirmed, right? They were short over 400 police officers. That in and of itself, just to hear that, it kind of makes you sit back. And when I asked the question, are we short of police? Well, we are, but not really. So, I mean, that's concern number one. And then concern number two, and tell me what you think, this idea, and I said, you've made no arrests in these cases, and the answer is, well, it's not as simple as making an arrest. We have to open a file, we have to be 110% sure. Is this how things used to be?
Well, it wasn't always a matter of making an arrest. And yes, you have to be sure. Oh, I'm very sorry, you have to make your case. But that's always been a part of the deal. And if the argument now is, so I don't think it's any more difficult.
Okay.
I think that there's more demands on investigators to put together cases that won't get blown out of the water in court. But all that said, I mean, are we facing? And this is the other question, because a lot of industries, my own included, we're facing an experience deficit with all the retirements that occurred in the Montreal Police Department. That living, how can I put it? That asset of experience. Are we missing that in the Montreal Police Department now? I'm not saying the people there are incompetent, but if they do not have, how can I put it, the flight time in dealing with certain kinds of crime, and certainly establishing the intelligence networks, and by that I mean snitches. That was the other element as far as when I was starting off. Of community policing. Yeah, you got to know every snitch in your community. You have to know every snitch in your district. So that way, you wouldn't be banging your head against the wall trying to figure out what the heck is going on. Does that still exist? I don't know. It doesn't seem like it. But as I say, the proof is in the pudding. And I'm not saying every morning is some cataclysm, Aaron. But every morning there is something going on, right. And it wasn't always that way.
You're absolutely right. All right, let me move on to talk about this Public inquiry announced into the Old Montreal fire. That's what the opposition wants at City Hall. And the question is, do we really need this? There's going to be a coroner's inquest. What do you think?
We need a public inquiry, and I've covered scores of coroner's inquests. Their mandates are very clear. Jehan Kamel, who's going to be the presiding coroner on the inquiry for this latest fire in Old Montreal, and that which occurred last year as well. And as we heard on the news, those two investigations may be blended. Yes, she is very diligent. Yes, she is very, very inquisitive. But her mandate is limited by the Coroner's Act. She's there to establish, you get the causes and circumstances of somebody's death and to try and formulate recommendations to keep it from happening again. The thing is, if we are, and Ensemble Montreal, to their credit, have raised a very interesting issue, which is, what in the hell is the Montreal Fire Inspection Department doing? Because on the one hand, and we can't figure out how is it that, rooms can have no window, and we're told, well, it's not a big deal because it's not the only, means of getting out of a building. But we're being told that these things don't seem to be up to code, and if they are, they seem downright dangerous. There seems to be no reason or rhyme. Plus, these are old buildings that can go up quite, as we've seen, that are very, very flammable. They go up like a tinderbox. So, I think we need to have some light placed on how exactly this city handles its fire inspection duties, and who's doing it, and what the criteria are, and why is it on the one hand they can shut down terraces on the eve of Grand Prix, and for all I know, perfectly justified, but on the other hand, they can just visit this place a week before and say, yeah, everything's fine, even though people were saying, like, there's no fire, there's no sprinkler system or whatever. I don't know. Maybe there's nothing wrong with that. Maybe it's normal. But you know what? I want to find out whether or not it's normal. And I'm not entirely sure, with all due respect to Coroner Kamel, I'm not sure that we're going to get to the bottom of that in the context of a coroner's inquest. I think a public inquiry, general public inquiry into that, a real grilling of City of Montreal's fire inspection service, of the fire department, to a certain extent the police department, to see if indeed this element that has come up, I'm sorry, it's always whispering to us from around the corner, was this part of an ongoing extortion racket that has been plaguing not just Old Montreal, but lots of areas of the city. Was that an involvement there? I'm not really sure. Even if a coroner's inquest was able to touch on these things, that it could go very well in depth. And I think it's high time we had a very in-depth look at what the hell is going on. Because honestly, I know the cops are telling us, and there's an excellent story in La Presse today. They went out with the anti-gang squad, and they said, crime now isn't the same as it was before. And that's 100% right. But you know what? Explain to me what that crime is. Explain to me as a citizen, as a taxpayer, as someone who might want to go to downtown, what am I up against? What are the risks, and what kind of crimes are we talking about here? Because I think for a lot of our listeners, a lot of Montrealers, we don't have a clue. And we only find out when all of a sudden you see a squad car pull up with the sirens going and telling everyone to get out of the way or whatever. If there's been a change in criminality in Quebec, in Montreal rather, I think Montrealers have every right to know every single detail about those changes, and I'm not entirely sure a coroner's inquest can take us there.
You make the case for a public inquiry. We'll see where this goes. Last thing, Jim, Geneviève Guilbeault, our transport minister, taking a lot of heat today. So yet again, and this is going to be my question, I started the show with this, again, Quebec has decided no matter what other agencies happen to say, and this is a government agency, right? This is the SAAQ this time, coming out and
Quebec
suggesting...
Automobile Insurance Board,
suggesting that they drop the blood alcohol level to what it is across the rest of the country. And yet again, the province says no. But the bigger story, Jim, you're suggesting is the transport minister basically has been called out on this. She said she'd not seen the report. I think the PSPP called her flat out a liar for saying that today.
Yeah. Now, the opposition is having a field day for this. But one of the things that came up today as well is a suggestion that there is dissension within the CAC caucus over this issue. And, I have no insights. Didn't have my ear pressed up on the door when they were having a caucus meeting. But let's face it, a lot of these people come from the regions. Is it possible, Aaron, that somebody stood up in that caucus meeting and said, listen, I don't have public transit out where I live, out in the regions. We get around in our cars. We get around in our pickups. Are you telling me I can't drink responsibly? And are you telling me you're going to impose this 0.05 on me, even though it's going to take me half an hour to go from my house out in the regions to the local village and go down to a local restaurant I mean, is this a cultural thing? Is this a thing where, we use our cars, 28/7, and no, this is going to be completely, this would be an egregious intrusion into our rights. The criminal code's fine, 0.08 is fine. Maybe that's what's happening. But the fact is, we're a pretty big province. I understand that, but more than half of the people in this province live in metropolitan areas, and the 0.05 limit. And remember, we're not talking about criminal prosecution. We're talking about administrative measures like seizing the car, doing whatever. You don't end up with a record, but it's a great form of prevention. It has proved itself. The SAAQ report pointed out that to do this, you would have very promising results. And as we say in these parts, it seems that Madame Guilbeault and the Legault government veut rien savoir là-dessus. Okay, that's fine. Whatever. We'll see what happens. But honestly, I guess it's just another day at the office where we basically have everything pointing in one direction, and the CAQ says, nah, we're going to go on the other direction.
All right. James Mennie at the Montreal Gazette. Thank you, Jim.
Demain.